Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to our series on how to network like a pro. I'm your host Mahnoor Rehan, a fresh graduate of Dow Medical College. Today we have with us Dr. Kimberly Johnson Hatchett, who is not just an exceptional neurologist, but also someone who has an extensive background in finance and banking. Dr. Hatchett, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb so we don't get disturbed.
Sure.
There we go.
All
Got
right, so let's begin. First, I would like to talk about the transition you had in your career. Like you changed your pathway from something very different into
it.
medicine and eventually neurology. What was the motivation behind this change in the career path? What was the thought process behind it?
So the thought process back then, I graduated from undergrad with a degree in finance and banking, and realized I had a knack for sales, and ended up working for an elevator company selling elevator maintenance. But it was like business to business sales, which is, a decent career. But back then, the holy grail of sales was pharmaceutical sales. And I ended up working for a company called Merck. It's a big, pharmaceutical company. And was selling medicine for them and selling different, medications. But during my training at Merck, I realized I had an aptitude for science and for biological science. Years prior, I live in the Kansas City area in Missouri, and they have a 6-year med program here where start in high school and, you already automatically go to medical school out of high school. I had actually applied and got accepted to that program back then, but thought, I'll just get a business degree. I don't really want to do this. But doing that job awakened within me the realization that I had the aptitude to understand this information. And like, I really understood it in a way that I thought, damn, I actually, can understand this really well, to the point that some of my physicians that I would call on would say, you understand this more than some of my medical students. You need to think about going back to med school. And I thought, I have a business degree. I don't even have organic chemistry and none of that. But around the same time, I also got divorced. And that gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted. And it also gave me the realization that life will move on, that I will one day die and have to answer for the talent and the knowledge and the intelligence that I was given by God. And I didn't want to have to answer for not utilizing that. I don't want to have to answer for that in the end, that I didn't utilize the things that I was given. So that was my motivation. And that's what pretty much what drove me was that's what drives me even now is I don't want to have to answer for not doing the things that I've been put on this earth to do. I went back and took all the prerequisites and the organic chemistry crap and all the stuff that you have to take in order to get into medical school, and then applied and didn't get in the first time or the second time, but finally got in the third time and ended up where I'm at right now.
Thank you so much for sharing something so personal with us. It basically teaches us that it's never too late to start all over again. Okay,
Hmm.
so if we move towards networking and associate that with the with your journey about the
Hmm.
transition, about the change in the field of work, how
Hmm.
did networking or influence that transition?
From a networking standpoint, it was like things just kind of fell into place. So I was working for a pharmaceutical company, and I was meeting these physicians that were young doctors. And I would just pick their brain, like ask them, hey, what do I need to do to go back to medical school? What do I need to do? So I wasn't afraid to put myself out there with the connections that were just kind of in my place, in my pathway, and ask those people who had already done what I wanted to do, how I could do it. And so I think that was pivotal in me going to a post-bac program. I didn't even never even heard of a post-bac program, but I went to and did a post-baccalaureate program based on the advice from one of my friends. And I remember I moved away from my family from, I lived in Missouri. I'm a fifth generation Missourian, so my people just didn't leave. And I told my parents, I said, I'm moving up to Pennsylvania up near Lake Erie. And my dad was like, where? And so we figured out where I was going to live. And I got up there and realized, well, shoot, I don't know anybody up here. I have no connection. I called the woman that had convinced me to do a post-bac program. And I said, I think made a mistake. I said, I'm lonely. This is terrible. And she reminded me that she had done a retinal surgery fellowship in Argentina. And she said, I don't even speak Portuguese. And I'm down here. I was there for 9 months learning, this field. And I don't even speak the language. She said, if I can do that, she said, at least they speak English. You'll be okay. And so she was right. So having that connection. When it was time for me to apply for medical school, I applied to all these schools after the post-bac program. And what I didn't realize is that same person was on the board of admissions for the school that I ended up going to. And so she asked me randomly, she said, well, where are you going to go? And I said, well, I got into these two schools. I'm trying to decide which one. And she said, well, what about St. Louis University? I said, oh, I got put on their wait list, but it's fine. I'm going to go, these other places. And she said, oh, okay. The next day, she went and talked to the head of admissions and said, I think you need to understand who you put on the wait list. I don't think you really want her on your wait list. I think you want her to be alumni of your school. And told them my story, my background. And that same day, I got a call, admitted me to the medical school. So connections always are important, but you have to not be afraid to put yourself out there to, be vulnerable and ask for help.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, if I talk of like you have spoken so openly about the setbacks in your journey. If I talk about networking and failures in the career path, what made you feel so confident to put yourself out there and still network with confidence even when you felt that you are behind in the journey or have faced some failures? What was that one thing that told you that it's fine, whatever happens, I'm going to ask out?
So I knew that time was going to pass by regardless. So either I was going to age regardless. So whether
Hmm.
I age doing something, going towards a goal that I really want, or I age staying stagnant in the way that in my life where it was right then and there, I was going to get older regardless. So you might as
Hmm.
well be shooting for something that you really want, and on that journey versus being stagnant. So that's what kept driving me, is that I have the realization to know that we're going to continue to age and we have to just kind of go after what we want, regardless of what the outcomes are.
All right. So, generally, there is a lot of advice on networking. In your
Mhm.
experience, what separates meaningful relationships from superficial networking?
I think, trying to have one-on-one conversations with people. So not being afraid to take someone for coffee or for tea, going on a walk with someone. Like one of my best mentors, I figured out that she liked to go for walks. So I would meet her at the park and she and I would go and walk and just talk about life and not really even talk about what I wanted to do. We would just talk about stuff and really getting to know that person as a person. So meeting them where they're at, doing things that they actually like to do, and then trying to find a meaningful connection between the two of you, is what I would say to do.
All right. So, you are basically telling that to include people in your daily activities to build that relationship, right? So, if
Mhm.
I talk about students who are not in US or who are in a different country, how do they approach people? Because they cannot share their daily routine activities with them. They need to go through a source, social platforms, or something like that. So, what would be your opinion on that?
So I think reaching out to people and not being afraid for them to say no or to be or ghost you. I could have easily ghosted you guys and not
True.
responded, right? But
Exactly.
you have to be okay with the no's and just keep going, keep going, keep going, and then being able to meet someone that way. So one of my friends told a story. He's an orthopedic surgeon, so not neurology, but that's okay. He's okay. But he said that he was in this area called Hayes, Kansas, and he is from, I think he's from Pakistan. And there was
Okay.
this Pakistan, I think.
Okay.
And or was he? No, he's from Jordan. Anyway,
Oh.
well, oh. No, the other guy's from Jordan. No, he's from Pakistan. So anyway, so he was telling me that he and his wife were working there. He's an orthopedic surgeon. She was like in residency or something, and this kid from Nigeria was there, and he was like, I want to go to medical school. And so he would come to their mosque and would help, clean up the mosque. And the way that he was, had his place to live was that he lived at the mosque and helped clean it up. And so that's how he was living. But then he was going to school. And so he helped him get an interview at a couple of medical schools. This kid went and got into medical school. So then medical school comes around, and now he's he's trying to apply for residency, and he's like, I need help. So he's like, look, I'll help you, fund you to go to all these different interviews, and got him all these different interviews. And so he ended up getting a residency. Then he met a girl and said, I want to get married, but I don't have the money to buy her a ring. We'll help you. So they helped him buy a ring. And long story short, this one connection at this mosque, from this kid living at the mosque to help clean up the mosque, and that one small connection in the middle of Hayes, Kansas. And Hayes, Kansas is in the middle of nowhere. So that turned into this now man has, is an orthopedic surgeon, family, and owes it all to this other person. And their only connection was that they were both Muslim. That was their only connection. And they both attended the same mosque, but he wasn't afraid to ask and say, hey, can you help me? You're a doctor. This is what I want. This is my dream. And the doctor was like, I saw how hardworking he was and how much he really wanted to better himself. So I just invested in him. And so now, we have another surgeon in the world doing great work because of that one investment and them both taking chances on each other.
All right. So the conclusion is that if you have the courage, you work hard, miracles happen. Okay. So like you said that this one contact changed his entire trajectory of life, because he was like just working in a mosque, and then he's a surgeon working, doing great things. That's
Yeah.
amazing for him. So what if that one contact or conversation that impacted significantly your career trajectory?
The one conversation I can trace back to me when I was in pharmaceutical sales. I met a woman who was a geriatrics doctor. I was selling an arthritis medication, and she said hi. I said hi, and we sat there and talked for a few minutes. But then I got her number, and I said, I'd love to, take you to lunch, talk to you more about the medication that I'm selling. And that conversation was the catalyst for everything. Like, I can
Okay.
trace it back to that one conversation. Everything else fell into place from that one conversation, because she introduced me to other people who introduced me to other people. And then, it just became, my whole network turned into these young physicians who were women. And that's really, or they were married to physicians. And that was my friend circle just totally changed from what it was before to that, over like a span of a year. It was really wild.
All right. So it's basically just be yourself, true to be people who are you asking for help, and everything will get into place. So if I ask your suggestion to students, how do they approach people without seeming very transactional about it, being there with genuine sincerity? Like, how does one approach? Because sometimes, a lot of times, there is an age difference, or there is, career difference. So how does one go about that?
So I think if you are, if you are not afraid of being told no, or if you're
Hmm.
not afraid of being told, okay, it has to be on my timeline, or not being afraid of saying, okay, yeah, but I got all this stuff going on, and then saying, well, I'll do whatever, like whatever you need me, whatever meeting them where they're at, and not being afraid of being told no, and having a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, just keep going until someone says yes. I'll do it.
Okay.
That's the thing. Just not giving up.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that. So, if we look at your online presence, it's very significant. What would
Mhm.
you suggest to students that how to strategically network using these platforms rather than just chasing opportunities?
Mm. I think the vast majority of the people on these platforms, like I've met quite a few people over the years, and somehow like have become friends with like people who are on the Today Show or on these like shows. But I think it's because I've asked sincere questions of them. Like I've reached out and said, you know, I'm thinking about doing this, and this is what I've done. What are your, can you help me? And either they ghost me or they answer.
Hmm.
And some of them answered, and then like there was one woman, her name is Jessica Shepherd. She's amazing. She's a badass. I mean, she is truly amazing. Like sitting next to Halle Berry and Oprah, like that's the level she's at. And I remember when I met her in face to face, like she and I had been talking off and on. And I was like, Dr. Shepherd, I don't know if you know me. My name's Kim. And she said, Kim, why wouldn't I know you? You and I, she said, you're my friend. And I said, we are? And she said, of course we are. And so we talked and we hugged each other. And she said, I learned so much from you, just as much as you learned from me. So I think putting yourself out there as just a sincere person. And I think that's the thing that resonates with people. I think when I'm online is that, I'm not afraid to have all my gray hair out. I'm not afraid to not look perfect or have typos or, whatever else happens online. I just am trying to educate people and give them some information that's going to hopefully help them live a better and more healthy life. Right. So I think most of us have that mindset, and those of us don't, so they might not answer, but those of us that do, they'll answer and they'll be there.
Honestly, I was so nervous before this session, but now when I see you talking and being true about yourself and embracing the flaws, that if you are stuttering a little and if you are a little nervous around people who are senior or even who are your age, it's fine. Like just be yourself. It's like it gives me so much relief that I can speak comfortably, way more comfortably now. So, if considering you have interacted with so many people who are mentors who help out students, what is that one quality that leaves a positive impression on them, even if it's online, if it's in person interaction? Because a lot of times it's very difficult to judge or determine that if the other person is sincere or not. So, what is that one quality that you guys notice? Oh, okay, if she's like this, if he's like that, they must be a good person. Like, what is that one thing you would like to share?
Um, is with that you're asking from the person that's trying to be mentored or the person that you're asking to be a mentor?
Who is asking a mentor for help, like as a student?
Yeah. Okay. So I think from a student standpoint, the biggest thing that I look for is someone that is open to feedback, and, good and bad feedback, and understands, like, has the understanding that they're not going to be perfect,
Hmm.
and that they have room for improvement. And all of us do. Like, my patient, my residents and my fellows will ask me something, and I'll be like, I don't know. I said, let's look it up, because I don't know what the research says right now. I mean, I know what I knew back then. I said, but clearly something's changed. And so we'll sit and look up things together, and they'll teach me just as much as I'm teaching them. So
Hmm.
that ability to be able to take feedback and to want to improve and want to be better, because that's the big thing. I mean, all of us are just practicing medicine. None of us are
True.
masters of medicine, right?
So, like you said, that we do not have answers all the time.
Right.
There must be a time in your journey when you were transitioning or when you were, thinking that if you should switch or not. There must be a time when you were not sure about the decisions you were making. So,
Yeah.
at that time, how do we approach people when we don't have a clear goal in our mind? How do we
Mm.
put that confusion in a way that doesn't confuse our mentor but gives them space to discuss what are the possibilities, what are the pros and cons of
Yeah.
our decision?
I think thinking it out first before you go there. So like if you have, what you like and don't like. Like I'll
Hmm,
say this,
true.
in medicine, if you like people or you don't really like being around people. You know that about yourself. So then you have to have a career that if you don't like being around people, you're going to think radiology and pathology. You're not around people with those careers, but you're still a physician,
True.
right? So you have to think about things practically in a very succinct way before you ask questions. You don't want to come off as flighty. So that's one thing I would think about. Like if you want to know if you want to cut on people or not cut on people. So if you don't want to cut on people, you're not going to be a surgeon. So
Hmm.
you that's those all those specialties are out. If you want to have a plethora of things that you want to choose from and you have really no idea what you want to do, then you're going to be an internist. I knew very quickly I did not want to be an internist. Very quickly. But even in neurology, even the field of neurology, there's at least 15 different subspecialties you can go into in neurology. The vast majority, I would say 95% of us do a fellowship in something.
Hmm.
So very few people just do neurology. Very few. So that's even in that field, you have to very quickly figure out. I knew very quickly I did not like running and I did not like pressure cooker situations. So I'm not going to be a stroke neurologist. Like very quickly, I knew I didn't want to do stroke. So I knew quickly I liked being around patients. So I'm doing the field that I'm in is I have my patients pretty much until they die. I diagnose people with ALS, unfortunately, and I'm with them for the last 2 to 3 years of their life before they transition. So that's the field that I've chosen to be in, and that's okay with me because it takes somebody has to do it, and I actually enjoy getting to know those people and helping them, transition through this difficult diagnosis and, have some dignity and some good quality of life for the years they have left.
All right. So the idea is to be honest with our needs, what we want. Oh,
Yes.
great.
Yes. And
So,
not shortcut what you want. So like if you say I want to be a neurosurgeon, then you have to own that and not be
mhm.
afraid of wanting to do that because that's you gotta you're holding the head in your hand if you're doing stuff like that. You are going after it, but you can't be afraid of even going after something like that too.
All right, that's a great advice. Honestly, I'm going to always follow, like, keep that in my mind when I take big decisions. So, in your experience, what is that one mistake you see students or young doctors making when they are approaching seniors or people for mentorship or guidance?
Being flaky, like not showing up on time or um not fiddling with their phone. I mean, I'm I'm in that weird generation where I can remember not having a phone. Or and then like when high school I had a phone that was in the trunk of my car. Like we didn't carry phones. And now I'm talking to you on my phone. So like I would say just being very present and being very there with that person. And that way when you're talking to them, you're not talking to them and then looking at your phone or talking to them and being, off at another, like being very direct and in the conversation in the moment with your person. So that's what I would say.
Even in my experience, I think being present is so important, and not just in conversations, in relationships, in life as well, like to actually absorb what's happening around you, even if they are the most simple things. Being present is the key. So, when we are moving towards the end of the session, I would like to ask, what is that one advice you would like to give to everyone, medical students especially, or even like in general? What is that one thing you would like want people so much to know, that just do this one thing, follow this thing, like that one thing?
Um, I would say this one thing. If you can envision yourself being somewhere, that vision is real and you need to go after it. No matter how obscure you think that, like, oh, I don't know that I'm smart enough to do this. No, you wouldn't have been given that vision if it wasn't actually a possibility. If it wasn't actually something that really could happen to you. That vision would not have been given to you if you couldn't do it. So don't be afraid of going after the hard thing. You can do it.
All right, even I read it somewhere, if I'm allowed to share about it, that ideas look for people when they find someone, and then it's the moment that we think of an idea, it's basically the idea finding us. And when we don't work on it, or we don't
Hmm.
take or own it, basically the idea, it goes and finds someone else. So there is always a purpose whenever anything crosses your mind, even starting a band, a recipe book, anything, most simple things or the big things, it's always for a reason. That's what
Yeah.
I have also read.
Yeah.
So Thank you so much, Dr. Hatchett, for sharing such valuable insights with us today. I'm genuinely so inspired by your journey. And I'm sure every student who is struggling with networking or anything else would find this session so helpful. Thank you so much once again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So, to our viewers, if you like our content and want to see more of it, keep following us.